The highway hummed under Ashton's car tires on that fateful day in 2015, like a tired engine trying to remember its purpose. Night had settled warm and thick over the American town he lived in, the kind of summer heat that made the air feel slow and heavy. He had finished a long shift at the Pokémon Center, bandaging a stubborn Growlithe's paw, calming a jittery Togepi, restocking shelves with healing potions. And all he wanted was a bed and the quiet that came with sleep. The dashboard clock glowed 2:14 a.m., and the world outside his windshield was a smear of sodium streetlights and distant neon. His phone buzzed against the console. The name on the screen was unfamiliar, Norton. Ashton answered on instinct, tired and polite. The voice on the other end was smooth and oddly persuasive, a voice that knew how to make a favor sound like a necessity. Norton said Professor Sycamore had stopped answering calls at his private lab. Norton claimed to represent Stardos Galaxy Research, a company with deep pockets and deeper patience. He said the lab housed a revolutionary project, research worth salvaging. He said Ashton was the closest Pokémon Center worker, and therefore the obvious choice to check the place out. When Norton hinted he could pull strings and cost Ashton his job if he refused, the choice narrowed. He told himself he would be home before dawn. He did not know how literal Norton's promises would become. The lab sat half-hidden behind a stand of pines, its facade glass and steel, lights dark except for a single blinking security beacon. Norton's GPS coordinates led Ashton to a side entrance with a keypad and a sticker advertising a new app, PokéLab Decoder. Ashton installed the app on his phone and activated it, and the app unlocked the door with a soft chime. The air inside smelled of ozone and old coffee, of antiseptic and something sweeter, an undercurrent of chemicals and the faint metallic tang of machines that had been waiting. The lobby was a museum of halted ambition. Display cases with prototype Pokeballs, a wall of framed patents, a projector looping a promotional reel of a smiling Professor Sycamore. Ashton's footsteps echoed. He felt watched by the silence. He told himself again to be quick. He moved deeper into the lab, phone flashlight cutting through the dark. He found file cabinets, research logs, and then an empty cage with scorch marks on the floor. A whisper of movement made him freeze. He ducked into a locker and held his breath while a lone technician passed, muttering into a headset. The man's shadow fell across the locker door. Ashton's heart hammered against his ribs. The technician left and said, "Time for me to go home. I've been working too long." To himself, though Ashton, still hiding in the locker, heard him. Ashton exhaled and kept going. Ashton's world tilted in a way that had nothing to do with the building. He felt smaller, lighter, and then the phone in his hand seemed absurdly large. He laughed at himself, fatigue playing tricks, until he opened the camera app and the screen showed a face that was not his, a narrow snout, bright green eyes, a leafed tail curling behind a slender body. He was a Snivy. Panic came in waves. He fumbled with the phone, the touchscreen awkward under tiny, scaled fingers. He remembered Norton's offhand warning about strange effects, and realized with a cold clarity that he had been transformed the moment he crossed the lab threshold. He was not the only one. Voices echoed down a corridor, human voices but with a timbre that belonged to Pokémon. He followed them and found a Charizard in a cage, its wings folded, its eyes tired and human. The Charizard spoke in a voice that made Ashton's skin prickle. "Help me." "I am Professor Sycamore." The words were human, ragged with disbelief. Sycamore explained that Team Galactic, now operating under the alias Stardos Galaxy Research, had come for his research. They had offered partnership, then betrayal. A drink that looked like coffee had been a trap. Sycamore had been turned into Charizard and imprisoned. Ashton's first instinct was disbelief, then anger, then a strange, practical calm. He had a mission: find the files Norton wanted and get out. He had a new body and new limitations. He had to adapt. The lab's innards were a maze of experiment rooms and storage bays. Ashton moved with a new kind of agility, slipping through vents and under tables. He was chased by a Pikachu that spoke in a sing-song voice, and lashed out with sparks, its aggression inexplicable until Ashton realized the Pokémon could understand him now. His voice translated into cries and chirps by the strange physics of the transformation. He escaped by diving into a laundry chute and tumbling into a room that smelled of old paper and warm metal. There on a pedestal lay a device that made Ashton's breath catch. A Pokédata Master 1995, shaped like Reshore RAM and glowing with a soft, golden light. It hummed with stored knowledge, entries, schematics, encrypted files. He slipped it into his satchel. The device contained the missing research, coordinates, energy signatures, and a file labeled with a name that made his stomach drop: Legendary Project. He pocketed the Pokédata Master and moved to find Sycamore. The deeper he went, the more he understood the scale of what had happened here. This was not a single betrayal, it was a program. Sycamore's cage was guarded by a single Team Galactic operative. Ashton used his small size to his advantage. He darted between the guard's legs, tripped him with a well-placed tail flick, and the man went down in anger as he was knocked unconscious from the fall. Ashton snatched the keys and unlocked the cage. The Charizard that stepped out was not the professor's body so much as the professor's mind given a new, terrible form. Still brilliant, still human in thought, but with the raw power of flame. Sycamore's gratitude was immediate and practical. He explained the Pokédata Master's true value. It contained the location of a newly discovered legendary Pokémon, a being whose energy could be harnessed as a city-scale power source. Sycamore had intended to use it for good, to end energy scarcity. Team Galactic had other plans. They wanted control. They wanted to weaponize the legend. Ashton and Sycamore moved through the lab together, a strange pair. A small, cunning Snivy and a towering Charizard with a professor's voice. They avoided patrols, navigated test chambers that smelled of ozone and fear, and pieced together the timeline of the invasion. Team Galactic had infiltrated under the Stardos name, promising funding and legitimacy. When Sycamore refused to hand over his research, they gave him a drink called a triple-shot espresso fire roast, which he thought was just coffee, but found out too late after drinking it, transformed him, knocked him out, locked him up in a cage, and began harvesting data. They reached the lab's central atrium just as Norton stepped from the shadows. He wore a tailored suit and a smile that did not reach his eyes. He introduced himself as Norton, then let the mask slip. He was N, the architect of Team Galactic's new face. His voice was soft and certain, the kind of voice that believed in destiny and the rightness of its own cruelty. You've done everything you were told like a good little Pokémon, Ashton. Now give me the Pokédata Master 1995. N's men moved like a tide. Ashton fought with the instincts of a Snivy, quick strikes, clever feints, while Sycamore in Charizard form became a furnace of controlled fury. The Pokédata Master changed hands in a scuffle. It skittered across the floor and landed at N's feet. He picked it up as if holding a key. Ashton lunged. N struck him down with a gloved hand, and the device slipped into N's grasp. For a moment, defeat tasted like metal. Then Sycamore's eyes found a glowing stone on a shelf, a Charizardite. With a tail that trembled from effort and hope, Sycamore rolled the stone into the cage. The Mega Evolution was not a spectacle, but a necessity. Sycamore became Charizard X, a storm of cobalt flame and renewed purpose. He broke free and unleashed a torrent of fire that scattered N's operatives. The battle turned. Ashton, still small and quick, darted between legs and claws, and together they forced N back. For a heartbeat, it seemed the night would end with the lab's liberation. N, however, was not a man who accepted defeat. He smiled, cold and certain, and triggered a self-destruct sequence. The lab's alarms began to wail. N fled like a shadow slipping through a crack, his escape a practiced choreography. He left behind chaos. Ashton and Sycamore ran, the building groaning around them. Fire licked at insulation and wiring, turning corridors into ovens. A falling beam pinned Ashton beneath a tangle of metal. He called out, voice small and human in a body that was not. Sycamore, with the strength of a mega Charizard, lifted the debris and pulled Ashton free. They stumbled into the night as the lab collapsed behind them in a roar of flame and twisted steel. The sky was a smear of orange and ash. N's silhouette was already a memory, a dark shape disappearing toward a waiting jet. Outside, the world felt impossibly large and painfully small. The transformation that had bound them to the lab began to recede. The effects that had transformed Ashton and Sycamore into Pokémon were not permanent once they had escaped the lab's influence. As the first light of dawn bled into the horizon, they were human again, exhausted, singed, and alive. Professor Sycamore took the Pokédata Master 1995 into his care. He promised Ashton it would be secured, studied, and protected from those who would use it for harm. He thanked Ashton with a warmth that was both professional and deeply human. They stood on a rise and watched the lab smolder in the distance. For a moment, Ashton thought he saw a legendary figure on a nearby hill, a white, majestic shape that turned its head toward the moon and then took to the sky. Resure Ram, or a memory of it, glided away, a silent witness to the night's violence. Sycamore warned that Team Galactic would return. N's escape was not a failure but a promise. When Ashton finally drove home, the road was empty and the air smelled of rain and ash. He parked, climbed the stairs to his small apartment, and collapsed into bed. Sleep came like a tide, deep, dreamless, and necessary. Somewhere beyond the horizon, N plodded, and Team Galactic's shadow lengthened. The return of N was not a single event, but a slow, inevitable tide. Ashton had survived this night, but the future would demand vigilance, courage, and the kind of quiet resolve that comes from knowing you have faced something monstrous and lived to tell the tale. The dawn found him breathing steadily, the last embers of fear cooling in his chest. He would wake and go to work at the Pokémon Center, and the world would keep its ordinary rhythms. But the memory of the lab, the glow of the Pokédata Master, and the echo of a legendary's wings would follow him like a promise. The fight was not over, and the return of N had only just begun. In 2017, high above Earth, a gleaming silver ring drifted silently through low orbit. This was Galactic Station, the newest and most ambitious creation of Team Galactic. Inside its polished halls, alarms pulsed with a soft blue glow as N, the former leader of Team Galactic, stood before the new commander, Rock'em. He was a stern, sharp-eyed man who had defected from Team Rocket years earlier. N pleaded for one final chance. Twice he had failed to seize control of the world. Twice he had been stopped by unlikely heroes. But he insisted he could still lead Team Galactic to victory. Rock'em studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. I'll give you one more chance," he said. "And you better make it count." N bowed, gathered a squad of galactic soldiers, and descended to Earth with a plan more ambitious and more dangerous than anything he had attempted before. A day later, in a quiet American neighborhood near Pallet Town, Johnny, now a young adult, relaxed in his living room. The TV flickered with breaking news. An entire town, the nearby Pallet Town, had been transformed into Pokémon. People were wandering the streets as Pikachu, Eevee, and Matchop. They were confused, frightened, and unable to speak. Johnny's heart dropped. He knew this pattern. He knew this villain. He walked to his old Nintendo DS, still holding his Pokémon black and white cartridge. He whispered, "Lugia, Zekrom, N is back." The DS glowed. Light burst from the screen, and Lugia and Zekrom emerged into the room, just as they had years ago. They confirmed Johnny's fear. N had returned, and this time he wasn't targeting a single region. He wanted the entire world. "We can't stop him alone," Lugia said. "We need allies." She opened her Poké-tablet 26, scanning for humans who had survived N's past transformation schemes. 3 names appeared. First, there was Ashton, the Pokémon Center worker who survived Sycamore's lab incident. Then Professor Sycamore, brilliant and brave. And finally, Brocky, a gym leader who once fought Team Rocket and crossed paths with N long before anyone else. Johnny nodded. It was time to gather the team. Lugia and Zekrom combined their powers, transforming Johnny into Reshiram once more. With a mighty beat of his wings, he soared into the sky alongside his legendary partners. They found Ashton, Sycamore, and Brocky at Sycamore's lab. The reunion was emotional, especially when Ashton realized the mysterious Reshiram he once saw during his escape from Sycamore's lab had been Johnny all along. Sycamore handed Johnny a device he had invented, the Poké-Talker, allowing Pokémon to speak human language. Johnny's voice echoed clearly through the lab. "We stop in together." But before they could plan further, the ground shook violently. A massive earthquake rippled across the region. Sycamore's monitors lit up with seismic readings. N and Team Galactic have stolen the fire sphere, Sycamore said. They've awakened Groudon. The team flew to a distant volcanic island where Groudon rampaged, spewing fire and magma. The sky glowed red. The earth cracked beneath their feet. N appeared briefly, smirking as he escaped with his guards. Johnny and his allies fought fiercely to calm Groudon. Working together, Reshiram's flames, Lugia's calming winds, Zekrom's thunder, and Brocky's tactical skill. They restored the fire sphere to its resting place deep within the volcano. Groudon settled, returning to dormancy. But N was already gone. He had gone back to Galactic Station. The team pursued N into orbit, boarding Galactic Station just moments before N activated its central weapon. A planet-wide transformation laser. A green beam of shimmering energy shot toward Earth. Every human on the planet transformed into a Pokémon, obedient, mind-controlled, and unable to resist Team Galactic. Everyone except the 6 heroes who had boarded the station just in time. "You have 5 minutes. N taunted. After that, the transformation becomes permanent. The battle erupted across the station. Johnny, Lugia, Zekrom, Ashton, Sycamore, and Brocky fought through waves of galactic soldiers. Sparks flew. Metal groaned. The station trembled. At the last possible second, Sycamore reached the control room and fired a blue reversing beam back at Earth. A brilliant flash washed over the planet. Humanity returned to normal, with no memory of what had happened. N panicked. He tried to flee, but Rockdom appeared furious. "You failed me for the last time, N. Maybe you'll finally be useful to me now. No more running for you, just hold still for a second and don't resist it." He activated Team Galactic's most powerful device, the Legend-a-thon. The beam Rockdom shot out of the device struck N, transforming him into a legendary Pokémon capable of shifting between forms at will. He became Suicune, Rayquaza, Mewtwo, and more. With this new power, N overwhelmed the heroes one by one. Johnny and his allies collapsed, defeated. When they awoke, they were locked in cages. Rockdom stood proudly beside the transformed N. "You will all become starter Pokémon," Rockdom declared, "and I will trap you inside this Pokémon Black and White 3-game cartridge forever." But then, there was a ripple in space and a distortion in time. Palkia and Dialga suddenly appeared. With a single pulse of cosmic power, they shattered the cages and freed the heroes. N's transformation wore off. He was human again. Rockdom hadn't realized the Legend-a-thon's effects were temporary. Desperate, Rockdom and N tried to escape, but there was nowhere left to run. The station began to collapse. Lights flickered. Gravity fluctuated. Johnny as Reshiram, Lugia, Zekrom, Sycamore, Ashton, Brocky, Palkia, and Dialga confronted Rockdom and N in the central chamber. Together, they formed a massive combined energy sphere. A swirling fusion of fire, water, electricity, psychic power, and cosmic force. Rockdom and N were struck, engulfed in light, and pulled into a pocket dimension, sealed away where they could never threaten Earth again. The station shook violently. It was falling out of orbit. "Get to the escape pods," Johnny shouted. They launched just in time. From a grassy hill on Earth, the heroes watched as Galactic Station crashed into the moon, exploding in a silent burst of silver and blue. Earth was safe. With the threat gone, Lugia and Zekrom gently transformed Johnny back into his human form. The world celebrated the fall of Team Galactic. Rocktom and N were gone forever, and the remaining Galactic members were arrested. Johnny thanked his legendary friends and his new allies, Ashton, Sycamore, and Brocky. Lugia and Zekrom returned to the Nintendo DS, offering Johnny a choice. "Stay with us," Zekrom said. "Live as Reshiram in the Pokémon world." Added Lugia. "Protect it from within." Johnny thought long and hard. And accepted. He stepped into the DS, becoming Reshiram once more, a guardian of the digital Pokémon world. Ashton decided to leave his Pokémon Center job and work full-time with Professor Sycamore, who took in Johnny's DS and kept it stored safe in his lab. And Ashton helped Sycamore ensure no one could ever misuse Pokémon transformation technology again. Brocky returned to his gym, wiser and stronger. And the world moved forward, safe at last. The saga of N had ended. But the legend of Johnny, the boy who became Reshiram, had only just begun. So next time you play a Pokémon game and see a Lugia, Zekrom, and Reshiram flying by in the video game, you can rest safe knowing they are protecting future generations from harm and threats. A year had passed since the world was saved from Team Galactic's final and most dangerous plan. Their leaders, N and Rocktom, had been sealed away in a pocket dimension where they could no longer harm anyone. Peace returned to Earth, and the world slowly forgot the terror that had nearly reshaped humanity. But one person remembered everything. Johnny, once an ordinary teenager who had then grown up into a young adult, had chosen a different path after the final battle. After accepting an offer from his legendary allies Lugia and Zekrom, he transformed into Reshiram permanently and stepped into the digital world of Pokémon games. There, he became a guardian alongside them, a protector of every Pokémon world, inside every cartridge and console. The real world moved on. But inside the games, a new adventure was about to begin. Spring sunlight warmed the sidewalks of Milford in 2018, an ordinary American town where Jimmy, a cheerful teenage 8th grader, stepped off the school bus for his first day of 8th grade at Westmouth Middle School. He chatted with friends, joked about homework, and walked into his math class expecting a normal day. Instead, the room buzzed with excitement. Everyone was talking about one thing: Pokémon Blazing Orange, a brand new game launching in a few weeks. Jimmy wasn't a huge Pokémon fan, but he had played a few games before. His classmates described the new region in the upcoming game. The Hulton region, featuring real-time battles, new starters, amazing graphics and visuals, and a massive open world. It would also start the 11th generation of Pokémon games. Even the teacher, Mr. Hutt, had to quiet the class down twice. By the end of the day, Jimmy was curious enough to ask his parents if he could buy the game. They agreed, as long as he kept up his good grades. Jimmy proudly showed them his B+ on a recent assignment, and the deal was sealed. He would buy the game the day after launch. April 21st arrived with the energy of a massive video game launch. Jimmy and his friends met at the local game store to watch the launch event. Crowds cheered, screens flashed with gameplay, and the excitement was contagious. But Jimmy noticed something strange. On one of the demo screens, a Reshiram appeared, unmistakable and majestic, and glided across the footage for a split second. No one else saw it. His friends brushed it off as a glitch. The demo looped again, and the Reshiram did not appear. Jimmy shrugged it off, but the image stuck in his mind. The next day, Jimmy bought the Day 1 edition of Pokémon Blazing Orange. He rushed home, popped the cartridge into his family's Nintendo Switch console, and played for hours. The game was beautiful, fun, and glitch-free. He went to bed excited for Saturday. The next morning, he woke to a strange notification on his phone. Sightings reported. Please read. On PokeChat, located on a section of the website for the new game, players were posting about a mysterious Reshiram appearing in their copies of the game. Staring at them, following them, then vanishing. A developer replied saying Reshiram wasn't in the game at all, and was not one of the legendary Pokémon included in the game, and they were investigating the visual glitch. Jimmy remembered the demo screen. He remembered what he saw. But his friends hadn't seen anything in their copies, so he relaxed. Probably just a bug, he said to himself. That afternoon, he sat down to play again. Hours passed normally, until 4 p.m. Jimmy's mom called up that dinner would be ready in an hour. Jimmy paused the game, but the game unpaused itself. A Reshiram appeared on screen. It walked up to his player character. Jimmy grabbed his phone and snapped a picture for proof. Then the Reshiram destroyed his player character in a fiery blast of flame and turned its head. It looked directly at him, through the screen. Before Jimmy could react, the Reshiram reached out of the TV, grabbed him with a clawed arm, and pulled him straight into the game. Everything went black. Jimmy woke on soft grass under a bright orange sky. He felt heavier, taller, different. He stood up and realized he was eye to eye with the blue-eyed Reshiram who pulled him in. But if he was a human, why was he as tall as the Reshiram? He looked down. White fur, claws, wings. He was a Reshiram. Jimmy tried to scream, but a majestic howl came out instead. The other Reshiram chuckled warmly. Hey kid, it said in a human voice. You remind me of my old self. Same reaction and everything. Jimmy stared and then said in response, what? You can talk. The other Reshiram nodded and then said, name's Johnny. And yes, Pokémon understand each other perfectly, which is why you can talk to me, and vice versa. Whereas humans, on the other hand, just hear our voices as cries. Jimmy's mind raced. Why did you pull me in here? Johnny explained everything. He was once human. He now protected the digital Pokémon worlds. His allies, Lugia and Zekrom, were busy saving another Pokémon game. In the meantime, he needed a partner. Someone brave. Someone chosen. Jimmy was the one he had found. Jimmy worried about missing dinner, but Johnny reassured him, saying, time in the game world moves much faster. A few days here would be only an hour in real life. Jimmy breathed a sigh of relief. Johnny opened his Pokétablet 26, which he was borrowing from Lugia, and scanned the game world. A threat appeared immediately. Team Plasma had taken over Violet City, blocking entrances, imprisoning NPCs, and trying to control the entire Halton region. Johnny spread his wings. We have to fly there. Jimmy gulped. He was terrified of heights. Johnny quickly taught him how to flap his wings, how to glide, how to trust the air beneath him. Slowly, Jimmy lifted off the ground. His fear melted into awe. Together, the two Reshiram soared into the sunset. Violet City was in chaos. Team Plasma patrols marched through the streets, terminals blocked the gates, and frightened citizens hid in alleyways. Johnny moved with confidence, blasting grunts aside with controlled bursts of flame. Jimmy, still learning, stumbled through his first battles. But he held his own, surprising even himself. They freed prisoners, destroyed plasma terminals, and cornered the remaining grunts. This isn't over, the grunts shouted as they fled. But Violet City was safe. That night the city celebrated. Lanterns glowed. Music played. Pokémon danced. Citizens offered food to their legendary heroes. Using the game's currency, Pokédollars, via the city's food ordering app on the Pokétablet 26, Johnny ordered a sparkling rare candy deep sea stew, reminiscent of what Lugia had cooked up for him in the past. Jimmy tried a black and white bash sundae, made up of special Pokémon edible ice cream, which was the best ice cream he had ever tasted, and way better than any ice cream he had eaten in the real world. They slept under the stars, full and happy. The next morning, Johnny and Jimmy flew back to the portal where Jimmy first arrived. The shimmering screen still showed Jimmy's bedroom, untouched. Before Jimmy stepped through, a new portal opened, and Lugia and Zekrom emerged. They congratulated Johnny on protecting the game and praised Jimmy for his bravery. "You did well, Johnny," Zekrom said. "And Jimmy, you're welcome in our worlds anytime," Lugia added. Jimmy stepped through the portal and transformed back into a human as he crossed into his room. He looked at the TV one last time. Johnny, Lugia, and Zekrom waved goodbye from inside the game before flying off to protect another world. Jimmy checked the clock. It was 4:59 p.m. He made it back just in time for dinner. On Monday, Jimmy told his classmates everything at school. The portal, the transformation, the battles, the food, and the legends. No one believed him. Mr. Hutt chuckled and said Jimmy had a vivid imagination. Jimmy showed them the screenshot he had taken on his phone before being pulled in. One kid believed him, but the rest still doubted. Then a student burst into the classroom holding his switch. "I saw them," he shouted. "Two Resure Rams, flying toward Violet City while I was playing the game a few days ago." He showed the footage he recorded. The class gasped. Mr. Hutt's jaw dropped. Jimmy smiled. After the word had spread around the classes, his entire school, Westmouth Middle School, now knew the truth. The sightings stopped soon after. Johnny, Lugia, and Zekrom had moved on to protect another Pokémon game. Jimmy wondered if he would ever see them again. He looked at his Pokémon Blazing Orange cartridge, now just a game on the surface. But he knew better. For a chosen few, the Pokémon worlds were more than pixels. They were portals. They were adventures. They were legends waiting to be lived. And Jimmy had become part of that legend. A new era had begun. May 15th, 2018, began like any other morning for Mr. Hutt, the well-liked math teacher at Westmouth Middle School. He arrived early, as he always did, unlocking his classroom at 7:45 a.m. and setting out worksheets for his 8th graders. The room was quiet, the fluorescent lights humming softly above him. But his mind wasn't on math. Instead, he found himself thinking about something he had not thought about in years. Pokémon Emerald version, the last Pokémon game he ever played back when he was 18 in 2005. He had caught every Pokémon in every game he had ever owned. Except one. One elusive creature in Emerald had slipped through his fingers, and after so many years, he could not even remember what it looked like. He shook his head. He was a teacher now. He did not play games anymore. The bell rang. It was now 8 a.m. Students poured in, including Jimmy, the boy who had recently claimed he had been pulled into a Pokémon game and turned into a Resure Ram. The whole school had eventually believed him after another student showed proof. But Mr. Hutt was still not sure what to make of that. As class began, the students buzzed with excitement. Jimmy and his friends were talking non-stop about the newly announced Vibrant Emerald DLC for the Pokémon Blazing Orange video game. It's a remake of Emerald inside Blazing Orange, Jimmy said, and Rayquaza's gonna be in it. Another student added, "We're racing to see who catches it first." Mr. Hutt sighed and told them to focus on their math test. But something about the name Rayquaza tugged at the back of his mind. After school had ended that evening, curiosity got the better of him. He slipped into the computer lab and typed Rayquaza into the search bar. But before he could hit enter, Jimmy walked in. Startled, Mr. Hutt slammed the computer off. "Oh, hey, Jimmy. I was just checking grades." He lied quickly. Jimmy asked about his test score, which Mr. Hutt said was a 92, and then Jimmy left with his parents. Mr. Hutt exhaled, embarrassed he had almost been caught looking up a kid's game. He went home exhausted and fell asleep. That night, he dreamed he woke up in his bedroom at 5:17 a.m. The room looked exactly as it always did, except for a shadow that darted past his window. He approached the glass. Nothing. He turned back toward his bed. Crash! A massive green silhouette smashed through the window, shattering glass everywhere. Mr. Hutt jolted awake, heart pounding, realizing it had only been a nightmare. The digital clock next to his bed glowed 1:15 a.m. in red numbers. He tried to shake the image from his mind and went back to sleep. The next morning, May 16th, just before leaving for school, he opened his closet and froze. There, untouched for years, sat his Game Boy Advance and his Pokémon Emerald cartridge. He held them in his hands, remembering the hours he had spent trying to catch that one last Pokémon. He almost turned the console on, but stopped himself. "I'm an adult," Mr. Hutt muttered. "I don't play games anymore." But the thought lingered. At school, during lunch in the cafeteria, the students were even more excited about the DLC releasing the next day. Mr. Hutt overheard Jimmy mention to his friends that the DLC's sky would glow emerald green, just like in the original Emerald game. Mr. Hutt felt a chill. That was the exact color of the sky in his nightmare. That night, he went to bed early. At 1 a.m. on May 17th, a loud beep echoed from his closet. His Game Boy Advance had turned on by itself. The screen flickered with static, then displayed a message. "Go to the school's computer lab. I will be waiting." Mr. Hutt's stomach dropped, but something compelled him to go. He drove to Westmouth Middle School in the middle of the night, unlocked the side door, and walked through the dark hallways. The computer lab lights flickered. One computer was on, glitching violently. A green serpentine Pokémon appeared on the screen. It was long, coiling, and had glowing yellow eyes. Before he could react, the creature's head pushed out of the monitor like it was made of liquid light. It lunged and consumed him. Everything went black. Mr. Hutt woke up lying on soft grass. He felt heavy, exhausted, and unable to move. Above him stretched a shimmering emerald sky filled with glowing green stars. He thought he was dreaming again. Then he saw 3 legendary Pokémon flying overhead. Reshiram, Lugia, and Zekrom, before drifting back into sleep. When he woke again, sunlight warmed his scales. Scales. Kids approached him. Jimmy's player character, and the player characters of his friends inside the DLC playing with him. Mr. Hutt could see the usernames above their heads, and realized they were some of the students from his class playing the game's DLC. "Look, it's Rayquaza," said Jimmy's character. "Let's see who catches it first," the character of one of Jimmy's friends excitedly replied. Mr. Hutt tried to shout, "I'm not a Pokémon," but only a deep roar came out. A master ball flew toward him. Click. Darkness. He had been caught. Inside the master ball, he felt strangely energized. He looked down at himself. Long green coils. Golden patterns. Claws. Fangs. He was Rayquaza, the one Pokémon he had never caught in Emerald. And now he was the one who had been caught. But then, clatter. Jimmy's friend dropped the master ball, exclaiming, "Aw, looks like I had butterfingers." It rolled down a hill, hit a rock, and popped open. Mr. Hutt burst out, terrified, and flew away from the approaching Jimmy and his friends before they could capture him again. He soon discovered sunlight recharged him, explaining why he had been so weak at night. He tried visiting cities for help, but NPCs screamed and ran from him. He couldn't speak human words. He was alone. That night, he curled up on a cliff and cried himself to sleep. The next morning, something heavy sat on his nose. A Reshiram. "Wake up, Mr. Hutt," it said calmly. Mr. Hutt yelped. "Ouch. Why did you pinch me?" Johnny stepped back and smiled. "Just making sure you were awake." Johnny explained everything. He knew Mr. Hutt from Jimmy's adventure. He had not brought Mr. Hutt into the game's DLC. Something else, or someone else, had. He would try to help, along with Lugia and Zekrom. Johnny flew off, leaving Mr. Hutt with a sliver of hope. Mr. Hutt flew to Driftvale City, hoping someone there could help. A strange man in odd clothing approached him. "I can understand you, using this translation device I've invented." "Ingenious, right?" The man said. "Follow me." Relieved, Mr. Hutt did. But it was a trap. A net dropped over him. Team Plasma soldiers rushed in. The strange man stepped forward, smirking. "My name is N, the new leader of Team Plasma," he said. "And you are exactly what I need." Mr. Hutt's vision blurred as he was dragged away. He woke in a cage inside a high-tech lab. Machines hummed around him. Tubes glowed with green energy. N stood before him. "I escaped the pocket dimension." N said, "But I cannot return to the real world without power." "Your power?" He explained that the Rayquaza that had attacked Mr. Hutt through the computer in the school was a digital hologram designed to pull him into the game's DLC. N planned to drain Rayquaza's legendary energy to open a portal back to Earth, bringing Team Plasma with him. Mr. Hutt roared in anger, but the cage held firm. The machines began to hum louder. His energy was being drained. Suddenly, boom, the wall exploded inward. Johnny, Lugia, and Zekrom stormed into the lab. "Found him, thanks to his legendary energy signature that I picked up on my Poképad 27. Zekrom shouted. Johnny blasted the machines with fire, freeing Mr. Hutt and restoring his stolen energy. Lugia and Zekrom fought off Team Plasma soldiers. N snarled, "You cannot stop me." But together, the four legendaries overwhelmed him. N and his soldiers fled, vowing revenge. Johnny, Lugia, and Zekrom destroyed the lab completely, so it could never be used again. Mr. Hutt, trembling but relieved, thanked them. "How do I get back?" Mr. Hutt asked. Johnny opened his Poké-tablet 28. "We can reopen the portal through the same computer you came from." Lugia added, "Don't worry. Only 2 hours have passed in the real world." Zekrom nodded. "It's still the same night." They opened a shimmering portal. Through it, Mr. Hutt saw the dark school computer lab. He stepped through. His body shifted back into human form. Johnny, Lugia, and Zekrom waved from the other side before the portal closed. The clock in the computer lab said it was 3 a.m. 2 hours really had only passed. A Pokeball-shaped sticky note appeared on the computer screen. Mr. Hutt peeled it off. Note for Mr. Hutt. Better catch that Rayquaza in your Emerald game. And maybe let your students talk about Pokémon sometimes. From Johnny, Lugia, and Zekrom. Mr. Hutt laughed softly. He went home and finally slept peacefully. The next day, May 18th, Mr. Hutt brought his old Game Boy Advance to class. "Today," he said, "we're doing something different." He let the students play Pokémon games during free time. And their grades actually improved from the extra motivation. At lunch, he proudly showed them his completed Pokémon Emerald Pokédex, including Rayquaza, which he finally caught that morning. The students were shocked. Jimmy smiled knowingly. Mr. Hutt didn't tell them what happened. But he did say, "I'll never look at Rayquaza the same way again." The class laughed, and for the first time, Mr. Hutt felt closer to his students than ever before.